This video is brought to you by Mountain Dew Spark. Oh geez, I wonder what Super Nintendo RPG I'm gonna do this time. Ugh, stupid fucking... Sure, I agree. What's this? By Square and HAL Laboratories? Alright. I've been tricked! Recognize that I have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived by Phil Jackson, the New York Knicks, and the entire internet. Because Alcahest is not an RPG at all. There's no towns, no NPCs, no customization, hardly any puzzles or mysteries to solve. I know the definition of an RPG is loose and ambiguous, so you can really call anything you want an RPG because, hey, you're playing a role in Madden. You're playing the role of a guy watching TV. It's an RPG. But if the general consensus says that Zelda does not count, then this shouldn't either. It's as much of an RPG as something like Mega Man X, and I'm only barely exaggerating. Nothing that you would associate with an RPG is here. You might say, but look in the top left, there's an EXP counter. Sure, that's true, but you don't gain levels when you reach the next score in the top right. You gain another life. See this lives counter? You know, a life counter, the most RPG-like mechanic. Despite the label, these aren't experience points. They're regular points, like in an arcade-style game. Because that's what this is.
Let's see what we can do here. Just doing a little bit of changing. You know? Alright, now how do I save? There we go. Perfect.
Semantics on what is and what is not an RPG aside, Alcahest is alright. As a pure action experience, I would say it beats out other top-down titles that look similar like Brainlord and The Illusion of Gaia, but it doesn't have the other elements to counterbalance that. There's not interesting theming like in Gaia, there aren't puzzles like in Brainlord, so I'm gonna consider this a slightly lesser game. This game was only released in Japan, but because it was published by Square, it tricked people back then too into being one of the first games to receive a fan translation. So its place in history is reserved somewhat in that regard. Ironically, this game hardly benefits from a fan translation at all because none of the dialogue matters, and one could enjoy Alcahest just as much if they could not read the text boxes. Our story is a bunch of mumbo-jumbo, the epitome of John Carmack's porn analogy, and the villain is Goofy.gif. One of those stereotypes who repeatedly says, I don't have time to deal with you, then sends some fucking jobber out to try and do what he should just do until he runs out of people and then you kill him. It's like, oh geez, maybe I should have taken care of you at the start of the game when you weren't powerful and you had no extra abilities. As for the stages, they're not really all that cleverly laid out. There were never any moments where I would sit back and go, oh, that's clever. I was just kind of taking it at face value and just going. In fact, all the stages are remarkably similar. Now, Alcahest is a game that conforms to a very rigid set of standards. It's divided up into 8 stages, and each one of those stages conforms to a very narrow, specific template, which I will now demonstrate for you right here. Let's say this is where you start a stage, and this is the entire stage. Put a little boss monster right here. Gonna have to fight this guy. Only, something's wrong. You can't just go from here to the boss because in every stage there's a wall blocking you off from the boss. You can't pass this wall until you find the item all the way up here. So every stage you go, you get an item. Items open up the door. Door to the boss. Somewhere along this route. Let me get my green marker. There's another person. They might be at the beginning. They might be right before the boss. They might be by the item. It could be anywhere. But there's always another person. You always pick up another person, which in this game, having another party member is actually useful for reasons that I will explain now. So you take this person, you go to the boss, you kick its ass, you go to the next stage, and that's Alcahest. Unlike some other games, partner characters in this are incredibly useful because they aren't treated like separate party members. They instead act like extensions of yourself. You're still in control of everything that they do. They follow right behind you, they don't have a hurt box. Attacking normally will also have them attack. You can also press X to have them do their special ability. There's no bad AI to frustrate you with these guys. Once in a while you get these abilities. It's not at the end of every stage, but every time you get one is at the end of a stage, where they palette swap your character, put you in slightly different colors, but they each give you a different charge attack and unique ability. And I appreciate how new powers don't necessarily replace old ones outright. Different powers are useful in different situations, not only because of what they do, but because some enemies are weak to some bosses are weak to others. Even in the final stages, you might need to use some of the first powers you get in the game. Here's a complete nonsense example, but I'm fighting the final boss, and what's this? A screen wipe? A screen wipe? Seriously? Attacks the entire screen, and the only way I can figure out to avoid it is hope that you have enough MP left to use the invincibility shield. That's lousy design for an attack. Unless there's some way to dodge that I don't know about. You should always be able to dodge an attack no matter what. Period. End of statement. Something that annoyed me is that after you die, the game does not keep whatever weapon you had equipped on before you died. It restarts you with the basic vanilla outfit, and once you get a special ability, there's never any reason to use this ever again. But it got me killed a few times, where essentially I would waste my life thinking that I had something like the charge attack equipped when I didn't. So I tried to use it, and then I run into a head full of enemies, and I just get hit and I die instantly. And it's like, oh gee, thanks game. I don't have much more to say about this one. It's a pure action game, and it's fine, I guess. As for the tier list, it can share a line with Arcana, the other HAL game I covered 2 years ago. Jeez. Well, anyway, never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Goodbye.